So I'm delighted to welcome Jo, who is there in the top right-hand corner from Stylability. So she is our first speaker. Sadly can't join us here today in person, but it'll be just as good on Zoom, and we've tested it all. So Jo, can I put you on full screen and you can share your screen and all that good stuff?
Well, let me share my screen first before you put me on full screen, Terry. No one needs to see that. Let's share my screen. There we go. So, are you seeing my PowerPoint
We are, yes.
practicality screen? Yeah. So,
If you just
just
put
what?
it onto the presenter view or screen.
Yeah. Well, just before we do, I just
All
wanted
right.
to. I was just having a conversation with Sarah about captions.
Sorry,
I know
sorry,
on
Jo,
Zoom.
can I just interrupt? Could I ask everyone else on Zoom to mute yourselves, please? There we go.
Are we okay?
Sorry, Jo. Yes, we're good. Thanks.
I was just going to say, obviously, Zoom has functionality for captions. I was just talking to Sarah about that. But for people in the room, they can also put captions onto your PowerPoint presentations whenever you do them. So I just wanted to ask if anybody would like me to do that in addition to the Zoom captions. Anybody? Just trying to find the screen where it does it. So when you do present to view, you can add captions.
Yes, we have the captions are coming up on the screen, Jo. It's fine.
Brilliant. Super. Okay, I won't enable it here then. So wonderful. Slideshow. So yeah, where I've clicked slideshow, if you just look up on the top of your screen, on the right-hand side up at the top, you can ask it to always use subtitles. To see where my pointer is at the moment. So just for anyone who's not aware of this functionality already, that's there. It's also really great if you're talking to people across different cultural boundaries as well, because you can actually change the language of the subtitles. So just thought I'd flag that as a functionality for people if they weren't aware. Super. Right, but I shall start from the beginning. And I know that you sort of advertised me on this call from the Adaptive Fashion Collective or as Stylability. And that is something that I would love to talk to you when we have a lot more time. But I do know that in the room you have Kat, who could talk to adaptive fashion. And I think I saw that was Kate as well, also in the room, who can speak about that. But today I want to talk a little bit more broadly, and I know you're talking to Danny later, so I thought I'd share my experiences of how I came to really focus on design for disability and the work I did on prosthetics and the work I did for the V&A Dundee and their exhibition Design Meets Disability. So I've entitled this Inclusive Design for All. And just one of the sort of things I wanted to flag is language is a really important in this space. I know Terry and I had a little conversation about, how we should brand this and sort of tone of voice. So that's certainly something that you should always be aware of when sort of talking in this space. And it can sometimes be one of the big barriers to design, but and design for disability. But we must remember this affects absolutely everybody. So I've sort of branded this talk Inclusive Design for All. So first of all, we're connecting through the Northern Design Network. So I wanted to sort of show this and ask a question for those of you in the room and also on Zoom, who recognizes this very design-centered brand?
It's Apple.
What?
Like everyone's got their hand up in the room, Joe.
Brilliant. We all recognize it. So, I mean, the key thing is that this brand, Apple, ostensibly a tech brand, but their main driver was to think differently. And that is something that we as designers and people connected with this design world can do. I think the other connection, everyone, my time of teaching at Northumbria, everyone talked about Johnny Ive as a Northumbria graduate. He's now connected to the Royal College of Art. I'm a graduate of both of those institutions. And I think it's that creative mindset and being able to think differently, which is the value that we can bring. And it was when I was at the Royal College of Art that I first came across inclusive design as a subsection and discipline of design. And I know on Zoom on the call we also have another graduate of the Helen Hamlin Centre of Design and the Inclusive Design Practice. Shout out to Lotta. Hello there, Lotta. So inclusive design. So inclusive design is something that has been in design practice for quite some time. And I think the key thing to think about is that as design, it doesn't just require ingenuity, but humility as well. And we've got to solve problems. So this quote is from the director of the Smithsonian Design Museum, Caroline Bauman, and she says, we must solve problems, yes, but it must also work with those excluded to reimagine, reimagine and improve experiences. And that's what brings us to sort of talk today. So, no. So, what I wanted to ask you in the room is another question. Has there ever been a time when the design of a service or a product or an environment has led to a bad experience for you? So for designers, we're going to make good experiences, good user experiences. Has there been an occasion where that's been a barrier to you? Any thoughts in the chat or in the room?
Everyone's lying in the room because that can't be true, surely. Yes, that's better. Would anyone like to share anything? Well, really? When was that? Julie, you wanted to. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, kitchen cabinets. I mean, I'm 5'4", and kitchen cabinets are too high. Too high. I can't get to the top of them.
Absolutely. Yeah, I remember my mum coming to our house. My husband's quite tall, and the microwave was high. And when my mum came to visit, who is also the same sort of height as yourself, she was like, she couldn't use the microwave. It's like, yes. So environments. Anybody else?
I think they're all a bit shy. Oh, sorry, yes.
Oh, shy. That's okay. It's strange doing this interaction online. So
like not being able to open a product. Oh yeah, somebody said it online as well, like not being able to open bottles or boxes. That's annoying.
Yeah, it's a huge thing, and as we change and as our bodies change, as we maybe get older, or just all the circumstances, we might find that becomes more of an issue. So I could say design can be a barrier then to people, to lots of people. I just sort of my son is left-handed, and I see this every day. So I'm putting on the slide there. 10% of the world's population are left-handed, and if you try to open a can using a can opener, or use a pair of scissors, so design can be a barrier if in terms of product. We talked about environments, kitchens, but also visually. I'm just putting a slide up there of sort of color contrasts as we're all moving into this digital world. In Britain, 4.5% of people are colorblind. I remember my father is, I remember going and taking him shopping and helping him because he'd pick up, these sort of wildly coloured shirts, and I was saying, "No, Dad, that's not appropriate." So yeah, the design can be that barrier for a lot of people, not just who we might think of as disabled. And this slide shows it really nicely. Inclusive design sort of role is to recognize that design can exclude a lot of people. So we see this graphic, which is actually from Microsoft, so another tech company, thinking about what an exclusion might be. So there's examples there of permanent or temporary or situational sort of environments of where we might actually embrace design. So, for example, at the top, touch, if somebody might have one arm permanently, think about how the world is designed for them. But it would also apply if you have got a temporary impairment, an arm injury, or even in a situation, those of us in the room have been parents and having to always carry children around and do things one-handed. So if you can solve a problem for one and extend to many, that is one of the key drivers for inclusive design. In another talk, I do a lot about the innovation that comes through when you have a disability focus. There's a lot of examples, products in the world that were sort of disability led initially and have solved problems. I see actually that as we're talking about Microsoft, they just launched another accessibility assistant into all of their devices now. So, and I think in March they have a big ability summit coming up. So I'll put the details of that in the chat later on. Has anyone else seen that infographic before at all? It's a really good one to sort of share to make people realize that inclusive design or design with disability in mind isn't just a niche. It's something that can affect us all. But often discussing disability, often people have perceptions. And what I wanted to just share with us here is the different models of talking about disability. A lot of people can think of disability as more medicalized, and that is referred to as a medical model of disability, focusing just on an individual, their limitations, impairments. And there's sometimes a narrative of using technology or adaptive to fix the person, whereas social model is those barriers aren't the person's, it's the society that's the barrier. Could be physical, could be caused by attitudes to difference. And most recently, in the last couple of years, there has been a design model of disability where we're thinking we might be able to use design to solve problems rather than be the barriers. So disability actually becomes a phenomenon that it could be treated or ameliorated through digital or material things. So design has a really strong role there. Yeah, this is, apologies for the slightly gruesome image on the screen. So I'll describe the image. What looks like a series of limbs on a table. Which is actually, this is an image I took when I was at a prosthetics conference. And this gives an example of sort of the medical model of disability. So when we think of that approach to disability objects, a clinical approach to disability has resulted in prostheses that are supposedly flesh-coloured, paint or plastic. We've got wheelchairs reminiscent of hospital beds, and an assumption that disability is something to be treated or cured or fixed, and ideally removed or else pragmatically hidden. And I'm sort of connected to a design manifesto. We really challenge that model of designing for disability objects. moving my screen on. And the work that I did that sort of brought me into that world of prosthetics and technology was a project I did when I was looking at the barriers to creative innovation and design-led innovation in this space and healthcare. So I was attached to the London Doctoral Design Centre, and I worked on a project with a team who did a project called Hands of X. And we were looking at how prosthetic hands have actually been designed, but also how you interact with them. And that became led to an exhibition called Design Meets Disability at V&A Dundee. Now, I'm super proud of that project because the museum say that had over 140,000 visitors come through, and a lot of people interacted with disability in a normal space. It wasn't something that they had considered before, so it helped move that conversation on. It also led me to work very closely with the Professor of Disability Design, Graham Pullin, who I know very well, also an RCA graduate, but always interested in how we can use co-design to actually work with people as experts. And it is from that we have proposed a new manifesto, a design manifesto, which is called Supernormal Design for Extraordinary Bodies. And we launched that at the exhibition. It was a pamphlet that could be bought at the exhibition. So I'm very proud of this. This is a new approach. And I'm just going to read our manifesto briefly to you. We propose a new approach to the design of disability objects, at once radical and unremarkable. We challenge the assumption that the role of design needs to be either to draw attention away from impairment or else to focus attention on disability. We reject this polarization as simplistic. We propose a more nuanced alternative that has so much more in common with design in other everyday contexts, given that disability is part of the fabric of everyday life. So the really interesting thing about the Hands of X project was that we prototyped delivering a prosthetic service within an eyewear retailers. And this is where Graham and I have been working closely together because academically speaking, my background has been looking at eyewear as that one element of a designed object that is medical, but also is so much about fashion, about personalization, and about you. But the important thing that came out of this is that its choice is really important. But also allowing for that sort of diversity of approach to an object. Some people with prosthesis might choose not to wear it because they don't want to have those conversations. Others are very, very proud. They'll have a quite superhuman type prosthetic. But everyone should be given the opportunity to have a scale that actually represents them. So yeah, these two concepts, supernormal design is a design philosophy, and extraordinary bodies is from disability studies. So we're colliding those to reframe how we talk about disability objects. So I'd be remiss of me with not to recommend a couple of books for you for reading and follow-up reading. But the first sort of key one is Graham's book, Design Meets Disability. And it was through the connection there that I've sort of focused on this area in my life. So the key thing about glasses, like I said, it is that sort of medical appliance. But that is actually a design object that has evolved into being a fashion accessory. So if that can happen for eyewear, surely for all other elements of disability related objects and experiences. So this book is great because it has an approach to objects, the really critical design approach, and sort of is very sort of provocative. So I do love that book. But the critical approach of designers and creatives actually helping shine a light on the experience of life is also reflected in Sarah Hendren's book, What Can a Body Do? And this is a very, very well written book about how we actually meet the world. It comes from her research of working in this space in the States for many years, but also she ran a project which was called the Accessible Icon Project, where looking at the representation of disability, she actually challenged that perception of that, changing that symbol of access that we recognize into a more proactive and accessible icon. And this is a really easy read, this book. And I do recommend that if you want to think about the role of how we meet the world and the role that design can have, have a look on YouTube for her talking about the book. It's absolutely fantastic. So we think about what the body can do and how we meet objects in the world. What can designers do about this? I think it just goes back to that initial thing, think differently. What is normal? There is no such thing as a normal user. And if you think about human experience design, UX design, you are often asked to think of a persona and what is a user. There's no such thing as a normal user. The best thing to do is use co-design process of engaging with real people for real insights. And that is what Hands of X did and that project. And it speaks to a philosophy in disability studies called Nothing About Us Without Us. So that is a thing we do. And support clients and your team to be accessible. I remember when I was first setting up a website, I assumed that everything would be accessible and guidelines. And it wasn't necessarily the case. So that's something that anybody who's a digital designer can do in the room, help clients sort of with that, but also just keep on learning and keep on questioning. And that is the skill that designers can bring. Thank you very much. I could talk for many hours about history of disability design, about spectacles, all these things. Or my current project that I'm working on with adaptive fashion and styleability, but that's for another day when I can talk more publicly about that. So, but up until then, I'm very welcome to anyone to reach out to me on LinkedIn or to have sort of further conversations. And thank you very much. Are there any questions in the chat?
Thanks. I think we need a round of applause, please. Thanks for that, Jo.
Thank you.
Anyone in the room like to ask a question or make an observation or pass comment or?
Hello.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Do we? And equally to anyone on Zoom who'd like to do so. Was that a request to ask something? No. Okay. So you've had 30 seconds.
Hello. I just want to ask a question.
Oh, please.
So, yes. Do inclusive design have a separate methodology to work on the process of design?
Yes, there is a fantastic resource at which I should pop it into the chat, where there are lots of toolkits and that you can use to have an inclusive approach to project design. There's lots of resources about sort of accessibility requirements and sort of technologically as well. But yeah, there's the free resources from there is a Norwegian site, but in English as well, that I can share with you.
Thanks, Joe. And if you do have other resources that you think would be useful, then please do let me know, and I can share them with
Absolutely.
everyone who's
yeah.
here. Everyone who's here today. You see, you've got them all thinking so much that they can't think. I recognise these expressions. You see, they're slightly bamboozled, and they're letting it they're cogitating. I can tell.
I am.
Yes, sorry, Julie does have a question though. So
No, it's more an observation. Oh, that was really lovely. Thank you very much, Joe. One of the things, so I'm Julie from Octo Design. We're industrial designers, and I think it's important for design companies to ensure that they are inclusive as well, because that's the way that you make great design. We actually, one of our best designers, I know this is going on YouTube, so oops, but one of our better designers actually has a visual disability, which you'd think would be strange for a design company who relies on the actual visual element of design. And he sees in grayscale, and he has to have the computer virtually at his nose. But some of the products that he designs are brilliant, and they are inclusive because he thinks along those. Oh, and he's colorblind, obviously, with the seen in grayscale. So I think it's an important aspect for design houses, regardless of the type, to be more inclusive if you want to access all markets.
Absolutely. Thank you, Julie. Yeah, there's one of the big things to sort of notice, and I'm sure maybe Kat will talk to this later on, is that disability is very often either invisible or non-apparent, and a lot of times people don't want to disclose the different way in which they meet the world. So we need to try to think sort of more sort of creatively, and designers have that skill to do that. And I mean, when I was doing a lot of teaching, I mean, a huge amount of people who work in sort of creative professions, they might have you know, neurodivergency or dyslexia, or very different ways of the way their brain works, and that creative brain is fantastic. But yeah, it's something that we really need to think of, and we have a role in helping change the way that our world is designed for everybody.
thanks, Joe.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for that, Julie. We leave it there, but
Thank
Joe,
you.
If as with all the speakers, I'll share Joe's contact details. So if you want to get in touch with her afterwards, ask a question then or whatever, you can do that. But again, Joe, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Sorry, I must jump off the call just briefly, but I will try and pop back in the room.
Right. Okay. Great. Thanks. Fab. I'm just going to, yeah, sorry. Is that the one? So we've done that. Oh, it's done it again. You know, sorry. I'm just going to, yeah, we'll have to go to that one. But then you've got to go to the start. Oh, this is so annoying. Don't you sometimes just hate Zoom?
Most of the time.
There we go. So we've heard from Joe. I'm now delighted to welcome Kat, who's going to tell us some more stuff. And I'm not going to. Yes. So I'll just give you the mic if you just want to pop that. Which will hopefully continue to work.
Yes.
There we go.
Cool. It's a full house. Hello, lovely to meet you all. So my name's Kat Palo Bend, and I'm coming from a completely different angle to Joe. So I have become what I am because of my disability. I was made disabled 16 years ago, a little potted history. I picked my baby out of a playpen, he was crying, I herniated a disc, surgery went wrong, left me in a wheelchair. So I've gone from being like you guys, out and about and doing and what the world would see as normal, and then suddenly I'm in a wheelchair and life changes forever. And that's a very unique place to come from. 80% of people with a disability actually acquire it through their life. So we're not born with it. It's not something that we've always had. So it's something we've got to adapt to and get used to. So this sort of led me into fashion, because before my disability, I used to sit on a board. I had a job in higher management. I was suited and booted. And then suddenly you're in a chair and your clothes don't fit you and they don't sit the way they used to. They're really uncomfortable. So I started having to make my own clothes to be able to portray who I was and what I wanted the world to see me as. The only thing that doesn't work is my legs. My head works, so I still wanted to be able to portray who I was, and life changes so much. People see you in such a different way. They see a wheelchair, they assume that you've got some mental capacity issues as well, and life just changes completely. So this is some of my journey. I started sewing, make my own clothes. It's the power of social media is actually how it has grown. I started talking about what I did. I started showing people the clothes that I was making, and suddenly people wanted clothes making, because we can't go into the high street and buy clothes that are suitable for wheelchair users. There's nothing out there. So we have to go to bespoke designers to get clothing that fits us, that's properly. I'm really proud that last year managed to get onto TV and talk about adaptive fashion. I was in a Unique Boutique where it was a whole program that was just disabled designers designing, making for disabled people. So we're starting to get seen a little bit more in life. We're starting to see people in wheelchairs on the TV. We're starting to be included in the design process of products and equipment, but it's very, very slow. And my biggest advice would be, if you're designing something, universal design benefits everybody. How many here have got an electric toothbrush? Yeah. So electric toothbrushes were designed for people with dexterity issues, for the disabled. But the design was so perfect that actually everybody uses it. And if we took it off you, you'd really miss it. So by looking at things from a universal design point, and by including your end user who have a disability, then actually, like you said about your designer who has vision issues, is one of your best designers, because we have to think about life in a different way. We have to come from a different angle. We can feed into your design processes in ways that you would never ever imagine you needed, but actually speaking to us and, like Joe said, co-producing and co-designing actually is really beneficial. So just an example of some of the things I've done with adaptive fashion. Same dress, but the issue is it's got what we call a mermaid's tail. Well, if you're in a wheelchair, that doesn't work for you. You can't sit on all that fabric. It would be on the floor. It would catch in our wheels. So it needs tweaking. So from the front, it looks exactly the same as the dress you see the lady standing. But actually from the back, it's been redesigned. We've taken all the fabric away. We've made it suitable for us to sit in. We've made it so that it's shorter at the back so that it doesn't catch our wheels, but it's long in the front. And that's the sort of approach we've got to take. We've got to think differently about design completely. Some of the cutest work that I do is working for children who are having cancer treatment. So one of the most important things is they've got central lines, they've got ports in their body. Some of the parents are really scared to pick them up because they don't want to pull the lines, they don't want to hurt them. So by making our garments, we're able to hide the port, and people are feeling a lot more confident picking up their children. They're not going to hurt them. I was just speaking to my neighbour, who we were introduced to earlier, and we're prototyping a medical device for children who are on Berlin hearts, so that their parents feel confident taking their kids out of the hospital environment, and they're going to be in clothes that are fashionable. A lot of clothes that are classed as adaptive are grey and boring, and we don't like grey and boring. We like to be in things that are stylish and comfortable. And for any of you that do follow me on social media, this is some of the mischief that we get up to. So gentleman Isaac, he was born with no arms, very short limbs. Started designing clothes for him, and the brief that I was given was he wanted to look ridiculously fashionable. And that's a fully adapted, ridiculously fashionable outfit that we made for Fashion Week. And it just shows that just because we're in a wheelchair, just because we can't buy clothes from the high street, doesn't mean we don't want to go to Fashion Week, doesn't mean we don't want to be on runways. We want to be part of the world. And so both of those outfits are adaptive. Well, there's 3 outfits on there, actually. They've both had alterations made so that they're suitable for wheelchair users, and they're bespoke. Oh, I didn't realise that video. And that's a video of us being ridiculously fashionable. So some of the alterations that we made, especially for Isaac, so he's dressed by his mum. His mum's in her 80s. So we have to make it so that it's suitable for her, so that she can dress him, but it's comfortable and it's adaptive. So you can see we've put a bigger zip on the fly. It's actually a fully lined outfit so that he's comfortable. He's got cotton against his body. And then the shirt, it's got a placket, it's got poppers instead of using buttons. Really easy to get him into. And this was for a very special event that I was asked to make. So Isaac was presented with an MBE in September for services to disabled people. And I had the honour of actually dressing him for that event in a fully adapted outfit. Every piece was bespoke to him. But one of the things that I love about this outfit is he has no arms, but actually you wouldn't know that. We've designed it in such a way that his sleeves are actually more like a cape, and it gives the impression. It also, one of the big things is people go to shake his hands. People automatically, if you see a sleeve there, you automatically would go to shake it. But this is a little subconscious way of going, well, there's an arm, sleeve, but there's no hand to shake. And proportion-wise, we make sure that it's fit to his body as well. He caused quite a stir in the palace. He caused quite a stir wherever he goes, Isaac. And I'd highly recommend you follow him on LinkedIn, because he is hilarious. And he's really breaking ground with the disability he's got. So a video editor, he does that from his bed with his tools. The videos that he produces are absolutely, they're well-being. They're brilliant. They're really, really good. So that's why he was recognised for his MBE. Yeah. So he's called Isaac Harvey. Yeah. Yeah. So if you connect me on LinkedIn, Isaac and I have got a company called Seek Perspectives, and we go around and show videos from a wheelchair perspective of companies who've absolutely nailed their activity. They've gone above and beyond, but they're not shouting about it and they're not telling the community about it. And the biggest thing we want to highlight is the disabled community. 1 in 4 in the UK have some sort of disability, be that physical, be that hidden. That's not a niche, 1 in 4. As your customers, your colleagues, in some form will be touched by disability. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Purple Pound. Purple Pound is the spending power of the disabled community. That's estimated to be £200 million per month in the. That's not niche. That's a lot of money that if you're not thinking about your disabled customers and clients, you're walking away from. And in the climate that we're at today, I don't think anyone can afford to walk away from that sort of income and customer base. So it's really just highlighting the fact that you may view disability as a niche. You may think that it's not something that's very important to get involved with, but actually, at some point, it will touch your life, be that personally, or be that through your family and friends, or as you age, your dexterity becomes less. And so including us in your design from day one, not adding a thought at the end because you've forgotten about us, is really important. Talk to us, collaborate with us. That's what we want to do. We want to bring the world of disability into your lives and just show how bright and sparkly it is and normal. We're as crazy and dippy and fun as everybody else. So there's my contact details. I'm open to collaboration, talking about fashion, talking about videos, don't mind. If you've got any questions, happy to take any questions.
So wow. Again, anyone on Zoom, if you got, I'll just unshare the screen. So on Zoom, if you've got a question, just give me a wave, and I invite you to ask it. But while we're doing that, Kat, can I ask you, were you a clothing designer before this all happened, or has it something that you've right? Okay.
Yeah. So I used to sew. My grandma was a seamstress, but I've got no degrees. I'm not university trained. It's something that I've picked up along the way. And it's something, there are very few designers out there who specialize in disabled bodies. And people actually through Zoom, through lockdown, you'll have noticed if you're working from home in your joggers, you get a draft on your back because you sat all day and your trousers don't quite fit right. Well, that's us every day in our wheelchairs where our trousers don't fit right, our skirts don't. So it's literally from lived experience.
And there are lots of things that have been introduced for people who are now working from home, aren't they?
Yes.
Kind of leisure wear and all these work, and that didn't take very long at all, did it?
It didn't, no.
People like yourself, it still hasn't.
No, exactly. We still can't go to the high street. We still can't buy the clothes that we need. There's a little bit for children, but it's very there. It's very there. And why shouldn't we? What we wear expresses us and our personality. So why shouldn't we be able to do that just because we're in a wheelchair?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, so fabric's a huge issue in wheelchairs. I don't use anything that's synthetic. Everything's got to be a natural fiber because you're sat on a plastic chair, it's hot, it's slippy. So with the green dress, we actually took the back off and we put a green cotton layer. So she was sat on that. And then the satiny flowy fabric came over our knees and came just to the side of our chair, because otherwise, yeah, she'd have slid away. Yeah. So a lot of it is, it's hidden what we actually do so that we can give the effect of a normal prom dress. Yeah.
I wondered, you mentioned that it was to recognize that you're embedded that in the philosophy. I was wondering if there's any like really top of mind examples of companies that have done that really well.
Sadly, there isn't. There isn't. Microsoft are doing really well. They're doing great. A lot of the companies that have really nailed it are actually grassroots companies. They're companies that have been set up because the person either couldn't get employed to suit their disability, or they couldn't find the products that they were wanting. So they go from grassroots and grow from there. Larger companies and corporations, very, very few of them have got inclusion embedded into them really well. Very few.
Hopefully that will change.
It will. We're out there, we're loud, we're proud, and we shout about it.
David, on Zoom, you had a question. Could you put your camera on, David, so we can see if you're able to, of course.
My camera's playing up, so I can't put it on. But yeah, the question I've got is if you're doing the sewing, how do you do it with the because most sewing machines have got a foot-operated pedal, and I have tried sewing in the past, and the material has just run away with me and gone through the machine and everything. I just wonder how you've overcome that issue.
I use a Brother machine, and it's got a stop-start button on it, so I can use that. I've got a knee lift so that I can operate it with my right leg.
Right. Okay.
But most of it it's all button controlled.
All right. Okay. Just because when I've done it in the past, I've used both hands to try and feed the material through, and then I haven't got anything to press any buttons with. And my feet don't work. My legs don't work at all. So.
Okay. So yeah. So the one that I use, it's got a speed controller. I can take it down, so it's literally one stitch at a time.
All right. Okay.
Right. But with practice, it is just a practice thing of learning how to handle your fabric,
all right, okay.
and your machine, and yeah, it's like a dance, really.
Okay, good, thank you.
No problem.
Lania, is that your name, or is that yes? Or...
Hi guys, can you hear me okay?
You can, yes.
Yeah, first of all, Kat, thanks for sharing your story. So my name's Lania, and I've got a sustainable outdoor clothing company. And I think one of my personal and professional goals is especially that industry, there's a lot of elitism and barriers to accessibility, and even as simple as if you own a surfboard, it's the perception that you're going to have washboard abs, and that's just it's not the. And I think the biggest thing that I struggle with as a brand owner, and would love, maybe it's for a different forum outside of this talk, is the balance between inclusivity and virtue signaling, because I find a lot of brands at the moment, it's more of an afterthought, as opposed to, I'm in the probably lucky position to be a small business and trying to get it right from the start, but there's a few, it's finding that balance between, even on the website, if you've got more inclusive clothing, does that become a separate section, or do you have it as the main product and you pad that out to be accessible for everyone? Because I'm really conscious of creating barriers, if that makes any sense. I might have rambled.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean. I think there are companies out there that are tick boxing, but my advice would be just start and have that communication with your customer. I wouldn't necessarily make it I wouldn't just say it's adaptive or it's inclusive. I just have it as part of your range, because that is stigmatizing again, and it's like you go into another part of it. Just have it as this is suitable for people in wheelchairs, and you just highlight the points and the differences in that, but keep it as part of your normal range. Don't have it as an extra little add-on at the end, but just start the conversation. Your customers will respond to you. And I think, like Joe mentioned, a lot of people are frightened to talk about disability. They don't want to get it wrong, so they don't do anything. But actually doing nothing is worse than getting it. You need to start, you need to have the conversations. You need to hold your hands up and say, I've made a mistake, the language wasn't right, or but if you don't start, you'll never be inclusive.
Yeah. No, that's brilliant. Thank you.
No problem.
Our third speaker isn't actually a speaker. So I was at the Łódź Design Festival in Poland in May last year. It was amazing, and had all sorts of exhibitions of all sorts of different things, including quite a lot that were to do with disability and inclusion. And this was one by a lady called Danny Claude, who developed what she calls the third thumb. I think, well, why on earth would you do that? As you can see, that's well, yeah, it's a third thumb that is controlled by her toes. She herself doesn't have a disability, but she works in the area of prosthetics, and it was amazing. And what she'd done was she'd developed this as part of a project to see how the brain adapts when it has an augmented bit attached, and it does actually adapt, as we might hear later from Andrew. But then I started looking at the stuff she did, and it was incredible. So she's this is a product she developed. You can't see the bottom of it. Anyway, that's really annoying. So this lady has doesn't have the lower part of her arm, but instead of having one of the things that Joe described, which is like a flesh-colored thing stuck on, well, she has this, and that's not a hook that moves. It's incredible. It's like this kind of, oh, it's amazing. And then there's this again. This is one that has. I wish there were subtitles, but I'm spoiling the picture. Anyway, so it kind of lights up, and it does all kinds of amazing things. And I just loved that approach that she had. And then it took me to the Alternative Limb Project, which she's part of. And so here she has lost, or didn't have, perhaps the lower part of her leg. He also has a limb missing, but they're celebrating it in a way. They're not saying I'm imperfect. They're saying actually I'm human. And I think it's just a fantastic approach, a fantastic way of doing things. So I've been looking at some of their stuff, and it really is inspiring, and it just changes your perception, really, or certainly it did for me. And I was really hoping she could join us today, but she's not able to. So what I thought I would do is, I don't usually like showing videos, but she did a TED Talk a few years ago where she talks about the third thumb and the things that she did. So I thought I'd show that. It's only 10, in fact, it's not even 10 minutes, it's about 8 minutes. It's not even a full TED Talk. But I just found it really interesting and inspiring. So I'm going to show that. And then there won't be any questions because we can't ask questions, but I will share. I'll also share her contact details so that if you do want to find out more, you can do that. Is that okay? Right. Now, cross your fingers. All of them, because we don't usually do this. Right, I'm going to stop the screen share, and then I'm going to share it again. There we go. No, there's no sound. Right, yes. You know, I'd forgotten about that share your sound thing. How long have we been using Zoom now? Nearly 4 years. There it is, share sound, that elusive little tick box. Let's start again.
I designed extra thumbs. The Third Thumb project is based around a 3D printed thumb extension for your hand, controlled by your toes. It's a catalyst for discussion, a bridge between design and neuroscience, and a really unique experience. The words we use to describe our bodies and the bodies of other individuals is important. When we use words like missing, deficient, fix, false, or replace to describe someone, it means something. It implies there is a human baseline of normal, and there's not. The word prosthesis comes from mid-16th century Greek linguistic origin, prostethene, pro towards, tethene to place, meaning to add to. We physically design the world around us and we fit into it. Everything we touch interacts with our bodies in some way, especially our hands. Our hands are our biological tools. They're our body's physical interface with our environment, as well as the contact point for almost all physical tools we use. Devices, utensils, appliances, mechanisms, and instruments are how we add to ourselves. As a product designer, I love designing for the body, especially the arms and hands. And when I came across the origin of the word prosthesis, it suddenly shifted my understanding and perspective of what these objects are. Prosthetics sit in a really unique crossover point between tool, sculpture, experience, and body part, and not a lot of objects do that. And to design an object like this, I needed to understand what it was like to control something extra attached to my body. Because a prosthetic doesn't fix someone or replace something that is lost. It extends physical ability. So I started brainstorming how I would extend my ability. I went through the usual animal kingdom inspiration, wings, whiskers, tentacles, tails, and then I became a bit more human-focused. And what's more human than a thumb? Our thumbs create one of the most uniquely human movements that we do. I'm inspired by the body, and looking closer at the structure of the hand, I realized there were no interlocking elements or mechanical hinges, just material being pushed and pulled very deliberately. So whilst prototyping, I focused most on the outcome of the movement by the design of the material, the most successful of which was using 3D printed flexible filament, creating a kind of living hinge. We can't recreate the body in bone, muscle, skin, and tissue yet. But what we can do is be inspired by its ultimate function and utilize the materials we do have. And sometimes the outcome is even better. When we focus on extension, not replacement, we open up the possibilities beyond human physicality. An amazing example of this is the cheetah leg, a carbon fiber running blade used by athletes in the Paralympics. So I had my extra thumb. Now I needed to control it. The more complex the design, the harder it is to control. So with the flexible thumb, I decided to limit myself to 2 degrees of freedom, recreating the flexion, extension, and adduction, abduction of our thumbs. So why the toes? The most obvious choice for a control point was sensors on the arm. Yet all the muscles in my arm were already being used, and it was really hard to get 2 individual deliberate controls from my arm without moving my hand. And so I realized, regardless of where the sensors were, it would have to be a new movement I would need to learn. Myoelectric prosthetic arms contain EMG surface sensors, which utilize muscles in the residual limb. The muscles remember controlling the hand before the amputation, and myoelectric sensors tap into that, linking the muscle movement to coded mechanical control of the prosthetic. Congenital one-handers are different to amputees. They were born with one hand, so they were born their whole self. There's no muscle memory in a congenital limb because it's never needed to control a hand. So if a prosthetic is utilized, it takes a lot of training because the brain needs to be taught to operate the muscles to use this new extension. As with the control of the third thumb, I needed to introduce my body and my brain to this new addition with the least amount of impact on my basic body movement, as well as the most seamless translation of body control input to movement output. And after a lot of testing, I decided on the toes. When you drive a car, do you think about pushing your foot down to move? Or do you think about moving forward and your foot goes down? That's muscle memory. But it also really helps that when it comes to hands and feet, we have a lot more coordination than we realize. Tools and products like drums, sewing machines, pianos, and electric guitars already utilize this really strong connection between our upper and lower limbs to extend or add to the task the hands are doing. The hands and feet are also represented in different areas of the brain, which is something I didn't know, but learned after I was invited to join the team of neuroscientists working on brain plasticity at University College London, or UCL. Primarily, the team worked with upper limb amputees, but were inspired to create a human augmentation study associated with the hands when they came across the Third Thumb project online after it went viral. Neuroplasticity is our brain's ability to adapt. When our bodies change and grow, and we encounter different experiences and skills throughout life, our brain changes too. At UCL, I'm working with Dr. Tamar Makin and Paulina Kaliba, and primarily with our study, we're exploring how the brain representation of our biological fingers, which you can see here in the rainbow, is potentially being altered by third thumb use, as well as whether the toes, the control point for the thumb, are potentially being represented more hand-like in the brain. We're also exploring what resources the brain will utilize to control a body part that's never been associated with it before. We've just started testing with participants with a thumb, and the study is really unique, being the first ever technological augmentation fMRI study, which is really exciting and ultimately contributing to a better understanding of the boundaries of brain plasticity, as well as new models for body representation. By focusing on this extension, we can work not only with the amputee community, but also a larger population of individuals, enabling significant amounts of data about the augmentation of the body to then feed back into areas of neuroplastic and prosthetic research. This project started as a personal design exploration and a way to gain understanding through experience, and I never expected it could evolve into this. What the Third Thumb project has enabled is a bridge between design and neuroscience, and strengthening these interdisciplinary collaborative relationships helps to improve research tools and ultimately to progress the design and functionality of prosthetic limbs. By focusing on extension, not replacement, we're shifting the conversation from loss to potential, from repaired to designed, and from missing to whole. Thank you.
You enjoyed that? Amazing, isn't it? Yeah. So, as I say, I'll share her contact details. Well, I'll ask her first, I should really. But have a look at the website. It's amazing, some of the stuff they're doing. It's really inspiring, and I thought it was worth sharing. So, I'm now delighted to welcome Andrew, who is here in person with us, who is going to, sorry, thanks. It's great having a producer. Sorry. Try again. Is it that one? Why? There we go. There we are. So I'll let Andrew from the Observation Observatory, who is going to, well, I'm not going to tell you, he's going to tell you. So Andrew, I'll just give you the mic if you want to clip that on. I'll bring a lectern in a second. Just pop that on. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Andrew, and my background is in medical devices, development innovations that happens in medical devices, and also the regulatory sciences. Today I'm going to be talking about an overview to human augmentation technologies that are designed to enhance and to improve human capabilities. This is a project that we conducted with some of my colleagues from the Innovation Observatory. And these are Dr. Sarah Khan and Emily Robertson. So before I talk more about the project itself, maybe you might wonder who am I and what about the organization that I'm coming from? So I'll talk about the organization that I work for. So I work for the National Institute for Healthcare Research Innovation Observatory. So in short, I'll be calling it Innovation Observatory. And I've got Don with me, who is also our industry lead. So in the Innovation Observatory, I am one of the co-leads for the medical devices, diagnostics, and digital program. I co-lead that with a nice gentleman called Nick Mida. So who are we? So we are an active National Horizon Scanning and Intelligence Research Center, and we focus primarily on the provision of providing early awareness and signals and access to the timely, intelligent, and support national decision making. And also, we work closely with a number of key stakeholders from government, regulators, the industry, patients, and so forth. In terms of the presentation of today, I'll give you a little bit of the background, and then we'll go and talk about the numbers. I really enjoyed the talks about what's happening out there by our previous speakers. But today I will try to give you some statistics, some numbers, or what is being expected to be on the market when it comes to these human augmentation technologies. These technologies, actually, they are developing and evolving, and they are emerging, and they are now embedding the new technologies such as the artificial intelligence, the robotics to help people with physical disabilities and also impairments. But sometimes the danger that comes, or the challenges that comes with new technologies such as artificial intelligence, deep learning, and machine learning, which is now embedded in some of these technologies, is that they also they can be vulnerable to hacking. So it is good that the designers, they start to think safety by design from the conception. They start to think about safety, because some of these technologies can be hacked, and the danger is that if somebody is using a technology that can be hacked, and somebody can change maybe the parameters, it can lead to some adverse events. So these technologies also can be used to enhance hearing, vision, and other senses, as well as to improve the physical strength and endurance. And not only that, but it can also be used to interact with prosthetics. And in the UK, it is estimated that there are around 25,000 people that are using prosthetic limbs, and that's about 0.04% of the total population. So the project that we conducted, the aims of the project, we wanted to identify these human augmentation technologies that are actually in the pipeline and that are being designed to be used within the healthcare sector. So that was one of the main aims. But we also wanted to provide the overview of the market-related driving factors, including the industry opportunities, the growth limitations, the trends that are coming within that space, and also the developments that may be of interest to different stakeholders, including you and I. And also in terms of the technologies, we were looking for these technologies that could probably hit the market in the next 5 to 10 years. So these were the objectives. And in terms of the overarching research question that actually guided our study, we were asking that what are the current trends and the future expectations in the development of human augmentation technologies designed to enhance and improve human capabilities. So this was the question that actually guided everything that we did on in our study. In terms of the methods that we used, we're focusing on 3 areas of research. That is the physical, the cognitive or mental, and also the sensory augmentation technologies. So these were the core categories that we're looking at. When it comes to the physical augmentation, this includes various technologies that are used to enhance and modify any individual, bodily capabilities, and these technologies actually can help people with disabilities to live more independently, and as well as improve the quality of life. And the examples of these physical augmentation technologies include the exoskeletons, the prosthetics, and also the artificial limbs. And as well as being devices that are used to retain a disabled or injured person to walk, the exoskeletons are actually sometimes used to enhance, or to enable paralyzed people to stand and walk. So that's one of the categories that we're looking to say, so what are the technologies within the physical augmentation categories? And also we looked at the cognitive or memory augmentation. So this technology can be used to improve various aspects of cognitive functioning, and such as the memory, the attention, the problem solving, decision making, and also creativity. And it can also be used to help people with cognitive disabilities, such as the Alzheimer's and the dementia, to restore some of the, their lost cognitive functions. And then the last category that we looked at is the sensory augmentation, which includes, technologies such as the hearing aids, the retinal implants. But for this category, it actually focuses on enhancing the senses by interpreting the sensory information and that is available, and also providing or presenting a feedback to the user. For people with profound or with total hearing loss, or the cochlear implants, which have been developed and refined over the past few years, are actually some of the examples that we see in this space. In terms of the data sources, or the primary data that we used, we looked at the clinical registries, and we used clinicaltrials.gov, which is a USA-based registry, and also our innovation observatory, Scan Medicine clinical database. So that's where we got most of our, all of our primary data from. And we did a search last year in August, and we were looking at identify these technologies in development for the past 3 years. So that was from 2020 August to 2023. In terms of the numbers, our data, when we did our initial search, we identified over 8,500 clinical trials that we found in the initial search. And of these 8,000, through the sifting process, we identified about 1,639 that were relevant to the study, and we included those in the final analysis. And when we categorized these into the core categories that we were looking at, the cognitive, the physical, and the sensory, we found that they are global. These are actually numbers from a global perspective, that there are about 790 technologies that are actually currently in the clinical trials and in development that are for cognitive and mental augmentation. And then 791 for the physical category. Interestingly enough, or what is one thing that is remarkable that we found in this particular figure is that we only had about 58 out of the 1,639 clinical trials that we identified that investigated the sensory augmentation. So this probably suggests that there is a gap in research in this particular area, and there is need for more studies to be conducted in order to understand the potential benefits and the risks associated with sensory augmentation. These are some of the numbers as well that we subcategorized the three core categories to the subcategories, and one interesting thing is shown in this particular diagram is that the trials that were investigating external brain interfaces were the ones that constituted the majority of these technologies, and this is likely because to the fact that the external interfaces are more accessible, is a more accessible way to experiment with brain augmentation. And not only that, but the external interfaces are also easier to test and are the least invasive way to conduct clinical trials. And we also looked at the condition areas which we categorized using the NICE disease and condition areas. So we found that the condition areas that were being investigated for each technology in clinical trials, the neurotechnology were the ones that were witnessing more numbers in terms of the clinical trials, or those are the ones that were in development, and there were about 641 that are currently in development. And this area actually is growing, and it is expected to be growing over the next couple of years. In terms of sponsors, or in terms of the type of sponsor of clinical trials, the technological categories, and also the trial location, we found that among the sponsors of the clinical trials that were being investigated, most were located in North America. So majority of the activities is happening in North America. And then it was followed by Europe, which had about 486. In North America, we had 717, clinical trials that were being sponsored by North America. And in the UK, we only had about 61 that are in clinical clinical trial stage. So this also just tells us that there is quite a number of activities that is happening also in Asia when it comes to brain and computer interfaces. So these are some of the numbers that we found within our research. So just to conclude, we have written a paper on this, and it's going to be published imminently. So if anyone wants to read more about it, you can contact me or any of my colleagues. But in terms of the conclusion, we found that these human augmentation technologies, they actually offer, greatest and unprecedented opportunities for enhancing human capabilities and performances, and also they enable people to do things that they would, otherwise not be able to do. And our scan has shown that there are a lot of trials that are being investigated within the cognitive and also within the physical augmentation, which are almost similar in numbers, 790 and 791 from a global point of view. And then we, as I said earlier, that we only had a few that were investigating the sensory technologies. But overall, our analysis showed that there is need for continued research in this area, and there is a big gap when it comes to human augmentation technology. So this was one of the researches that we conducted at the IO. So not only do we do the research on human augmentation, but we are also involved in other technologies depending with the stakeholder requests. So we, like I said at the beginning, that we deal with a number of stakeholders. So some, they come and they ask us to look at a specific technology to say, can we please help us identify what's in the pipeline, what's coming, and then it will help them now to make decision in terms of the policies, in terms of the regulations that or the governance aspects of all these technologies. So thank you very much. This is some of the work that we are working. Thank you. Yeah.